Welcome, Nehemia, to the World XP podcast. This is episode number 10. I'm super excited to have you on. And definitely, we've talked through soccer and some of our friendship before, and I know you've talked with me a little bit about your life and experiences over in Tanzania. But I'm super excited to have you on so you can share kind of your story with all 20 people that are watching this. But I think it'll be good. I know in our conversations in the past, I've found it really helpful. It definitely enhances obviously I've been to South Africa and I've seen some things. Obviously Tanzania is not the same as South Africa. Africa's 54 different countries. And so it's important to make that distinction as well. But it's important for me anyways to get an understanding of the culture and your experiences over there to kind of make myself more well-rounded. So welcome.
Thank you. I appreciate it. I'm glad you have reached out to me and talk about my experience. And I really love what you're doing with the podcast. I think it's getting people educated on what's happening in the world. I think it's really dope.
Awesome. Thank you. I appreciate that. So I think a good way to get started, I think probably would be just go through your kind of life, honestly, because there will be anecdotes in there that I think will help me and the listeners to understand kind of the experience as far as what it's like. So as far as what it's like there. So we were talking before, so you're Burundian, correct?
Yes, Burundian.
Okay. So where does the Tanzania part fit in, right? Because if you're Burundian, you tell, like, I've heard both. So can you give us some background on kind of where you were born and kind of how that connection plays out?
Yeah, so I was born in Tanzania, but I gotta tell you that I am Burundian. That is who I am, and the reason why I was born in Tanzania was because I was born in a refugee camp due to there was a lot of political chaos that happened between the Hutu and Tutsi tribe in Burundi and Rwanda, and that created a lot of civil war and political unrest in both countries. So with that, it would often be we had a Hutu or a Tutsi president, and the majority was Hutu. So Hutu's thinking, why should a minority tribe be ruling us? And as you can guess, a civil war broke out, and just that kind of went back and forth to where the country was deemed quite unsafe to live. So you have people fleeing to neighboring countries such as DRC, which Democratic Republic of Congo, which is what was Zaire back in the day. Uganda, you had some fleeing to Kenya and others like my family that flee to Tanzania. So just a little bit of how I ended up being in the refugee camp in Tanzania.
That's interesting. That I didn't realize it was the Hutu and the Tutsi, because I think people have seen Hotel Rwanda and are at least somewhat familiar with that story. I wrote a paper on that in college, but I didn't realize it was very specific to the events of the movie. It was kind of a movie-ish class, and that was the movie that I picked. But I didn't realize that it had spread into Burundi and some of the neighboring countries. Did it affect, where else did it affect besides Rwanda and Burundi?
So I mean, it's just primarily those two, because if you know, those two countries used to be one, when they were known as Burundi, Rwanda. That was before the Belgian came in and colonized the country. Mm-hmm. And with that, after, with colonizers, they went in there to show, provide them the language French. That's how Burundi and Rwanda both speak French, because the Belgian. And also kind of put their way of life into those people, and to the sense where I guess the Belgian picked the Tutsi as a superior tribe. Mm-hmm. And obviously that was going to create tension regardless, because the Tutsi were the minority.
Sure.
And the Hutus were a majority. It's also fair to mention that there's also a third tribe in that area that was called the Twa. And those were kind of often put into the side in the history books, but it's an important group of people that deserve recognition. So pretty much after Rwanda got independence from the Belgian, they went ahead and separated to Burundi and then Rwanda, mm-hmm. And started their own democratic elections, or something you want to call it, because beforehand they had just a king, but now it was once they separated, they started their own democratic elections,
Right.
and that's when everything kind of uh, went down, and a lot of people were killed, unfortunately.
Yeah. So your parents were in the conflict, I guess, or not in, so to speak, but it was around
In the
them.
conflict per se.
Yeah. Um, and they went to Tanzania to the refugee camp, right?
Yes,
And that's where you were born.
yes.
So the camp was run by UNICEF, I'm guessing.
Yeah, it was run by UNICEF.
Okay, so what was life like in the camp for you? Because just like give some background on what it's like to live in a refugee camp like that. Kind of how the schools are, who runs the schools, how the like the living spaces were. Did you guys have enough resources, food, water, that sort of thing?
So yeah, life in the camp was pretty much difficult, and it was really there. You kind of have to hold on to something, whether you are a person of faith or whatever it was. For me, I'm a Christian, so faith is what I had, in the sense that there will be some days where it will be difficult. Things that like water, wouldn't always come by. So that meant we had to walk a mile to barefoot
Mhm.
just to get clean water. And that was something we did like on a weekly basis per se.
Right.
In terms of school, we had to walk school again. That's a mile or two away, and for at that point we don't really have shoes per se. So you're walking barefoot. Not
Hmm.
to mention the African sun, the heat is
Yeah.
beating you down. So there were some points you're running because you want to get the destination so faster, so that way your feet is not full of blisters.
Right.
In terms of life in schools, it was as if we were back home in Burundi. So they were taught by Burundians, and we were taught French and Kirundi. Um, the main difference it wasn't, you didn't have an option of failing. It was either you pass the class or you get your ass whooped. In the sense that, let's say the teacher was like, okay, for this test, all of you have to get an A. 90% or higher, and that's it. You
Hmm.
get lower than that, you get your ass whooped. So I was one, was relatively smart, so I often would get my grades up like that. But
Hmm.
those who didn't get a grade, it means you got your ass whooped. So that mentality of just failing wasn't an option. It was, I can pass and be safe, or I can fail and get my ass whooped. And
Yeah.
that ass whooping, didn't just happen at school. Once you got home, your parents found out, like, hey, you failed this class. What's up with that? That's another ass whooping.
Yeah.
It was safe to just study and know your shit before
Hmm.
getting ass whooping.
So the schools weren't, they were local then. They weren't ran by unit. They weren't ran by the camp.
They were ran by the camp. So the funny thing about the whole camp was we were in Tanzania,
Hmm.
but the Tanzanian government didn't really want to do anything with us. It was pretty much a little piece of Burundi to
Hmm.
Tanzania, and we were kind of secluded in that. We were kind of on our own per se, with UNICEF helping us out with a lot. It was providing us food and other resources. They really, UNICEF was really what can help us out.
Hmm. What was daily life like there, like besides school? Because you like obviously in the United States, right? You get up and you go to school and then you come home and then you either are like playing sports or video games or whatever. So obviously it's not it's not the same. Did you have I remember reading stories about different like refugee camps would set up their own like soccer teams and then they'd play against each other and things like that. There's been drives here in the States to get like old soccer cleats and stuff to send to refugee camps. Um, was there stuff like that at the one that you were at, or not so much?
Yeah, there was actually, and my older brother, he was part of the team that was in the area. So they would travel to other refugee camps and play. But oftentimes soccer was, that's where I really learned and got to fall in love with soccer, because we went to school around like 6 a.m. ish. You came back around 12.
Hmm.
Around 12, because they didn't have food for you at school, so you had to come back home and eat.
Right.
And sometimes you go back to school after you ate, but oftentimes they kind of switched it whether you went to school in the mornings or in the afternoons. But after school, we would just go home, we would play soccer, just play soccer in the streets. And for a cool minute, there wasn't really electricity there, so we would play until the moon was out, and the moon was always always shining there. So play soccer, you went home, you ate. Sometimes just because our parents were always trying to find just like low income jobs to get something to get food on the table. That meant the kids, we were doing most of the cooking. We were doing most, like, if you had little siblings, we're taking care of them. So at times it would be like, I can play soccer for an hour and I need to go get water immediately. So I can buy for my siblings and I. Or I play soccer for an hour or didn't play sometimes at all, and I'll be taking care of my siblings. But they were good.
Did the political tension like kind of come into the camp with the people? Like, were there Hutus and Tutsis in the same camp, or did you see any of that at all? Or kind of once you were in the camp, it was like not, like, was the tension still there at all or not so much?
No, the tension wasn't really there, because at that point it was kind of like you flee this terrible thing, and why bring it up in a camp where everybody's trying to reach safety and dream a better life. So it wasn't really, the whole Tutsi thing wasn't really, it was there obviously, but it wasn't really, it wasn't, nobody paid attention to it. It was kind of like, let's just go ahead and survive so we can make it tomorrow.
But they were mixed together, right? Hutus and Tutsis were mixed together.
I believe so, yeah. I believe so. I say that because the whole thing, if me and somebody else were to stand between, like, in front of you, you can tell between a Hutu or Tutsi. But again, that's because, the Belgian really figure out a way to differentiate one between the other. Whether if you had lighter skin and you were taller, you were Tutsi. If you were darker, you were Hutu. But anyways, all that kind of stuff is really like, a normal person couldn't tell if you were Hutu or Tutsi. But it wasn't really a willing.
Yeah. Well, that's good that it didn't come into the camp then. That would have been not so good.
Yeah.
Okay, so you're in the camp, you're playing soccer, right? You're running to go to school and get the water and all those different things. And you were there for, how long were you there for?
I was in the camp for about 9 years.
9 years. And then, so your parents make the decision to come to the United States?
So yeah, we were fortunate that there was an opportunity that came with UNICEF. In 2007, 2008-ish, they decided they would send out some refugees to the United States. And with that entailed a whole a process of selection. So my parents heard about this. They were like, we obviously want to do better for our kids. We want them to have a future that's not as like ours. They have a better future. So they decided to go through the process and apply for resettlement in the United States.
Okay.
Yeah.
So how did that work? Because I remember we were talking before. You said it was luck. So you applied, and how did they pick you guys, I guess, or how did the application process work?
So I say it's luck because it was a very just strange process. It was they asked you to provide documents such as birth certificates, which we were fortunate enough to we had them. But for others at the time, it's like, the last thing is on your mind is to get a birth certificate. After, let's say your child is born on the way when you're fleeing from Burundi to Tanzania.
Right.
Or it wasn't really a thing. So documents like that were requested. It helped a little bit that my father spoke a little bit of English, so he could navigate just a little bit. And they just asked you random tests that you really couldn't prepare for. So we saw people who were relatively well off in the refugee camp, at least more wealth than others, go through that same selection process and not get chosen. Just because, again, random reasons. So I say we were lucky and fortunate to get to get chosen to go to the United States.
What were the tests like? Did you have to take any of them, or did your parents just have to take them?
I honestly don't recall. I remember going to the testing centers, and I was just sitting there for a couple of hours and then leaving to go back home. I don't remember much of the tests. at least in that part while we were in that first camp.
Okay. Okay. So you go through the testing, you get picked, and then are you going straight to the US, or is there another step before you go?
So other step, you go to a different camp, and with that, they really test your, I guess, your health and wellness. So if you have any diseases like malaria or AIDS, whatever that may be, those kind of diseases kind of prolong the process of you going. So some people will be in the other camp for like a month and will go ahead and go. Others will be there for years, just because the process, depending on how the process or how their health was and wellness was. So also in that camp, they taught you a little bit about the United States, a little bit of English, a little bit of things, how to kind of get you acclimated to the United States. That was kind of the next process from there.
Was that camp similar to the first one in terms of living conditions?
A little bit, but I would say it was you were a bit better off because they provide you with housing, and then also they had a lot of programs that would take care of your needs of food and other resources. So
Okay.
it was much better.
That was also UNICEF as well?
Yes, it was UNICEF.
Okay. So yeah, I mean, I guess it makes sense that they're testing for all the diseases and stuff, right? They don't want, in that partnership, I guess, that the US has with UNICEF as far as bringing the refugees in, they don't want to bring unnecessary diseases, right? We saw that kind of with COVID. I know it's not the same, but it's similar enough to where you wouldn't want that in your own country. So that makes sense why they would do that. The testing as well. I know it seems like to you it seems random, and obviously without more details, I don't really have the room to say one way or the other, but it would make sense that they would want people with some sort of skill set, right? You don't just want to let whoever in, I guess, because I don't know. It's a weird one, right? Because obviously you want to help as many people as possible, but at the same time, it's like you want to better, better and improve your own country. So like people who will add something to society, So I guess it makes sense a little bit. Obviously it's difficult if you're in that situation. I don't wish that on anyone, but I guess that kind of makes sense. Okay, so you go through the second camp, right? And you're there and you're getting tested for health, and okay, you get the thumbs up. You have no diseases that you're gonna take to the US, and they've determined that you're good to go. So you fly.
Yeah, we fly.
Yes, you fly to the US, and how did you end up in Virginia? Like, did everybody in your group end up or were you in a group first of all, but did everyone end up in Virginia, or how did that kind of work?
So yeah, so we were in a group. As a few of us kind of went at the same time. But in terms of the United States, we didn't know about the states or regions. We're just like the United States is just one big pot. So when we got chosen to go, we got placed in Virginia. Well, like we didn't even know what that was. For us, as long as in the United States, was all good. We didn't even care where it was, like what state we were in. But others got placed in Texas, Kentucky, Tennessee, Ohio, just different places. So once we arrived in DC, we were welcomed by the Catholic Diocese, which is an NGO, as well as a local church actually in Fredericksburg downtown, actually here. And they kind of took care of us for the first couple of months.
So they welcome you, right? Do they give you housing? What is their kind of role in getting you guys acclimated? How did they help you guys?
So they gave us housing, a house to rent for the first couple of months. They help us out with, at least the parents with job searching, getting them jobs, sometimes teaching them how to drive, teaching them the English language a little bit here and there. And also offering touring lessons for those who are still in school.
So once you got into the United States, was the immigration process kind of done for you guys, or did you still have to go through some paperwork and logistical type things?
So it wasn't fully done because they were asking us to provide all these documentations, such as just document kind of like prove who you are as an individual, which again we didn't really have those IDs.
Right.
For some, birth certificates weren't a thing. Like some people didn't know how old they were until they came to the United States.
Right.
That's because, like I said before, there was like, boom, you were born, cool, welcome to the world. You know, if you were born, especially on the way, parents were fleeing, one came to another, they didn't care. Sometimes you were born like in your own home or on the road, on the way.
Mm-hmm.
So birth certificates wasn't really a thing. So here we're really asked those kind of questions and ask for all those kind of information. So that way we could get either what was your green card, citizenship, or whatever it was. So you can move on with those kind of process.
So are you a citizen now?
Yeah, I'm a citizen.
So we're going to get back to your sort of timeline in a minute, but
Yeah.
what was actually, let's get to the citizen stuff later. Let's keep going. So you guys are there, and they're helping your parents out find like with job searching and teaching them how to drive.
Mm-hmm.
So what was the transition like for you culturally, and then also for your parents? Like, do you recall kind of how your parents were feeling when they were there, or not so much?
Yeah, so in terms of my parents, they were very obviously glad to be here because it was an opportunity that, like I said, you got lucky just because you didn't know how it was gonna go.
Mm-hmm.
So they were happy to be here. They were to this day they're still, I guess, transitioning to the language as well as a culture, just because they came here when they were older now. So language doesn't come to you as easily when you're like 40, 50 years old.
Right.
Most where you're, 10, 20, 20 years old, it doesn't come to you easily. So they're still adjusting to that. As for me, I really relied on interactions with school and like students and other teachers,
Mm-hmm.
as well as shows like SpongeBob to learn English. So just those kind of things. I thought English language wasn't really that hard to learn. I would
Mm-hmm.
say I learned it in probably a little bit less than a year, at least
Mm-hmm.
to communicate with somebody, to carry a conversation. The language for me got difficult when I was in middle school, because
Mm-hmm.
then grammar, even to this day, I never really learned that, so I still struggle with
Yeah. I mean,
grammar.
grammar in English is hard. I mean, people who were born here still have no idea half the time. It's like people still mix up their two and twos, and their there and theirs, and they're less and fewer, and I before E except after C, unless it's rhymes with neighbor and way, and all these like weird like
So you
grammar
just lost me
sayings.
right there. You just lost me right there. I didn't even know
Yeah.
that myself.
Yeah, like the only reason I know that's a rule is because a comedian made a joke about how ridiculous the English language is. So like, I didn't even know the rule. So yeah, definitely the grammar is a tough one. Learning that after not knowing English. So I tell people, in my opinion, the base of the English language, as far as being able to carry a conversation, doesn't seem to be super difficult, like you said, but people like to learn it to the full extent. I think it's probably one of the most difficult languages in the world, in the Western world anyways, to learn, just because of all the random rules. But were the schools welcoming to you? Like, did you feel welcomed in the school? Like, obviously it was probably a difficult transition, right? You don't know much English, and the culture is new, and all this other stuff, but generally were the schools pretty welcoming?
Yeah, the schools were very welcoming, at least during that time. I think now I can say, okay, this part they messed up. It's because when you're in a new area, if you don't understand the language, people are making fun of you or doing those kind of things to you. You don't really care because you don't understand them.
Yeah.
As I look back, I'm kind of like, dang, they were doing this to me. They were doing this to me. So, but at the time, I say schools were relatively friendly and helpful for me.
And the area as well, like when you would go, like when you would leave home and you would like play soccer with like the general, just like, did you feel like when you got to the US, did you feel like, yeah, I'm good here, I can be American now, or like I feel welcome here?
Yeah, I felt that it wasn't I said it wasn't, because at that point it wasn't too bad, just because you just for me, I knew soccer.
Mm-hmm.
And it doesn't matter what language you speak at that point. Everybody can pass. You can play. You can play. Who cares what language you speak? I didn't speak the language, but so I was, I was cool. I was cool.
Yeah, that's good. So how long did it take for you, do you think, to fully kind of transition into American society and feel comfortable, like normal, I guess?
I would say a little bit after seventh grade. So I came here, I was in fourth grade.
Mm-hmm.
After seventh grade, I was, I guess, normal. I started doing things. For example, I joined my first travel cycle team
Mm-hmm.
in eighth grade and kind of started traveling here and there. Always picking up things. Always like learning new things. But I mean, that's when I kind of figured out that I could navigate the United States a little bit.
Yeah. So now I want to get into the citizenship part a little bit.
Yeah.
So for those who don't know, like myself, what does that entail to become a U.S. citizen? Like for you, so like what sort of like application things did you have to go to? I know everybody knows the citizenship test or whatever, but what sort of things did you have to go through application wise, interview wise, testing wise, that sort of stuff?
So with that, I don't really know too much because like my parents kind of, once your parents pass the test,
Mm-hmm.
then all of you, if you're under 18, you're good. So I was under 18,
Oh,
so my parents passed the
okay.
test, they were good. But their process for them, like I said, they didn't pick up the language, know the culture as quick as we did because we had school and we had, where we're going out with friends, we were watching cartoons and whatnot.
Yeah.
So we were good on that end. For them, it was difficult because they had to be in a class, one, to learn English, and two, they spent a cool, I'd say like a whole semester just practicing for the test. I'm talking like they had like this CD in the car that would play for 3 months, asking them questions. First question in the United States, what's the conclusion? What is the preamble?
Mm-hmm.
All those things. And for somebody who one doesn't speak the English language, understand the culture,
Mm-hmm.
and now they'll have to learn U.S. history, it's not really an easy fit. And not to mention that they're still they're working low income jobs to get their families, afloat. So
Mm-hmm.
that's how I kind of saw in terms of my parents' process, and likely for me and my brothers, they passed, so
Mm-hmm.
we're good to go.
Was the test, was it like super heavily based in history, the test was?
Um, yes, but I think for me personally, like if I took the test when I was in ninth grade, I could have passed it, just
Yeah.
because it was a simple civics and U.S. history. So things you learn in middle school,
Mm-hmm.
things that they kind of ask you, like, so it's not too
Oh,
much,
okay.
I would
Mm-hmm.
say. But then again, when you or a parent have all those things to take care of, um, it doesn't come as easy.
Yeah, definitely not. Well, yeah, luckily for you guys, they passed, and that's awesome to hear. Because I know for you, being at UMW, the work you did, you did work in the multicultural center, right? And
Yeah.
in some of the other places, I know a lot of the work that you did was, I feel like every month I see a new article. Nehemia wins this award. Nehemia does that thing. So it's definitely good that you got here. You made definitely an impact on a lot of people, I think, probably more than you realize. But so you won the Grace Man Award.
Yeah.
When you graduated from UMW. Congratulations on both of those things. It's fantastic achievement. So what is the Grace Man Award for? And yeah, we'll start with that. What's the award for?
So it's pretty much for an individual who's a champion of social justice, and it's really an ambassador for the unrepresented population over UMW. Person who was leading different clubs and really being the voice of change for those who didn't have a voice at the university.
So what was so was it just like a board of like faculty or whatever who picked that, or did you have to? Okay.
Yeah, so it was also a board headed by Dean Rucker and a few others.
Okay.
That picks a few individuals. So I want to give a shout out to Jason Ford. He was also a nominee. Like I said, he did great work for the university. But yeah, I was fortunate to get it just because of my work I've been doing in terms of really one that I did in W was educate people in terms of Africa, because there's so many myths that people have of Africa which are really not true. And really being a person who was not shy to speak on social justice issues that arose whether it was in the country or just even the campus itself, I was definitely a champion with that.
Yeah, I heard a lot about it from Jason as well. We had Jason on the podcast earlier. He was episode 2, I think, maybe 3, 2 or 3. I don't remember. I should remember. We're still in single digits. No, we're in double digits now because of you.
Double digits, yes.
But yeah, shouts out to Jason for sure. But and like you're talking about the myths of Africa, and you were kind of championing the correct, I guess, information to go out, the misconceptions, right, that you wanted to sort of debunk. I know I hear a lot of them in my daily life. I think that's why I was so grateful for my trip to South Africa, to be able to kind of understand the differences and understand some of the culture. Like we were able to, some of the trips people take are very watered down. This one wasn't. Like the company that booked the trip for us. So I went with my grandparents. They have this deal, I guess, with people that live in some of these communities that the company can show the tourists how they live. They welcome them into their homes. Like we went into somebody's home for a dinner, ate with a family, and they had everybody in the group eat with a different family. So we got to go experience this sort of culture. And even just throughout South Africa, you notice how it differs from region to region within its own country. So after that experience, it kind of irked me when I hear people be like, "Oh, Africa is this." I'm like, well, no, it's not, because Cote d'Ivoire is different from Egypt, it's different from South Africa, it's different from, like, even just in Burundi and Rwanda, there's two totally different tribes there. And so do you want to go into kind of what's the sort of work you were doing and some examples, some stories maybe?
Yeah. So one thing that people, often get wrong is like they refer to Africa as if it's like one country or one whatever. When Africa is 54 countries. So say Africa as a whole continent, and like you mentioned before, Nigeria, Egypt, South Africa, all completely different. And even within each country, there are so many tribes. For example, Ethiopia alone has a little over 80 tribes in just one country. So it is very diverse and very different. So that's really one that kind of irritates me a little bit. The other one is really people see Africa as as poor as in refugee camps. I mean, yeah, there is that, but there's also that a little bit. The poor is everywhere you go, even in the United States. But with Africa, there is the poorest of the poor all there, but there's also some very well-off rich people. For example, you go to Nigeria, they have some oil man, they have different things. And, it's not that you see it's all poor and all those kind of things. Well, it is, but also it depends on where you go. The different regions, so different regions that are very developed or even technologically advanced. So that's kind of one thing. It's kind of like, we're so poor. No, it depends where you go. Just like when you say the United States, yeah, they're well off, but then again, it depends on which neighborhoods you're in. So
right, exactly.
Really everywhere. Another one I would say, when people say, do you have a pet lion or a pet giraffe? I'm like, you have a pet lion, you have a pet giraffe? No, I don't. It sounds silly because I don't. This is not like, this is not some movie where I have a pet lion just laying in your backyard. Like, no.
Has somebody asked you that before?
Jokingly, I've heard a few. Yeah, I've heard, a pet lion or even I want to get the click that I'm like, whoa.
Yeah.
I mean, imagine the 54 countries. Let's say in Ethiopia, there is 80 tribes. Yeah. Those 80 tribes probably speak a different language. So with that respect, think about a whole 54 countries. So I've heard that one. And to those that do the joke, if you're listening, that's actually a language. That's a language in South Africa. That's Xhosa. That's in South Africa.
Yeah, and I heard it spoken when I was there.
Yeah, of course you have. Yeah, it's spoken there. But that's South Africa, and that's a specific tribe. I speak Kirundi. I speak Swahili. They speak French. They speak Portuguese. So they speak Arabic. There's just so many languages out.
Even in South Africa alone, there's Afrikaans. They speak Dutch, English, the language that you just mentioned.
Yeah.
Like I heard, I think 8 different languages in the space of like 3 weeks when I was there.
Yeah.
8 or 9 different languages. And to your point about people being poor or well off, you see that in Johannesburg as well. It's really stark. You go from Soccer City, where the World Cup final was played in Johannesburg, and there's like a big banking center in downtown, and then you go 5 blocks away, and people are living in like tinfoil huts without roofs, and it's totally different.
Yeah, like I said, so that's something that I was really just trying to push, and I think people should see Africa in a different light. They're all smart and they're smart individuals. There's some dumb people, but it's everywhere. Like I said, so it's not really Africa is not as different as you may think. A lot of things that you have in the United States, you have them there, but the whole continent, speaking the whole continent, just very it's very, like I would say, it's like they're poor. When I mean poor, like there was the poor of the poor,
Right.
and then there's the opposite also. So I think it's fair to mention that.
Yeah, to your point about it not being that different, it's like, yeah, culturally it's a little bit different, but
Yeah,
when I was there and we got to walk in the street, I would just talk to random people, and the ones that spoke English anyways, and they weren't that different at the end of the day. I would just like, I was in a bar there with like 2 of the guys that were traveling with us, and we were just talking to like some of the locals about soccer and just life in general. And it's not so different, to be honest, because at the end of the day, right, we're all human, we all like different things. So like some of the different areas, like we went into a Zulu village, and they're still living how, like in the tribal sense, with like tents and like the loincloths and like that sort of thing. There's a picture on my Instagram. The Zulu tribesman has my Nike hat on, and he gives me his hat, and we switched.
Yeah.
Took the picture. But like I talk to them too, and it's like, even though you would think as far away as lifestyles that is, you could still have a conversation with them. And it was really cool. It was a really good experience. And so again, like for me to come talk to you and to hear that sort of stuff, I think is good for the like people to know. It makes you more well-rounded to experience different cultures. That's why, like in our friend group at UMW, I was really like you and Yoel and Carlos and that whole group. I'd hear like 4 languages spoken a day. And it was really good. It was really like, I learned a ton from you guys. Just about different cultures and stuff. So what sort of platforms did you have to kind of do this, to kind of do the work that you're talking about?
So one platform that I had, I co-founded a community organization in Fredericksburg here, where I kind of help Burundian individuals kind of see what life is like after high school. So with that organization, we would often perform IMW at events, whether it was multicultural fair or other events led by the James Farmer Multicultural Center. So we would often sing in our native language, or sing and dance, and we would wear our culture, like our clothes. So that was kind of showcase, like, there was the Africa that you see on television. Right. And that part, there's some parts that are there, but it's also the Africa that you don't see on television, which is, the diverse, the culture and the beauty. You can tell an African by what they wear. There was just so many patterns, so many colors, there's just so many things that comes with being African, that we're all so different. So that's one platform I used. And also in my role as an RA, I make sure to really educate individuals, whether it was my bulletin boards or whenever I had meetings. I make sure, like, hey, this is how it is, and this is, let me educate you a little bit about Africa. Let me tell you about how many languages are spoken there. Let me tell you about how many countries are there. So those kind of platforms I would use, and I would often partner up with African Student Union, Res Life, or even the JFMC, the Multicultural Center, to put on programs that were kind of debugging those issues. And in terms of my other works that I did on that kind of platform, is I often help programs that would kind of educate first generation students on how to really navigate UMW. So how to do it in a social sense, financial sense,
Mm-hmm.
or even academic sense. How can you prosper here at this university, even though you are a minority? So
Mm-hmm.
I was allowed with the University Multicultural Center to really form programs that were beneficial to those students, and making sure that I was a resource where students felt comfortable talking to me about issues that may be facing, and that they felt like they had a home, in a sense, at UMW, where they could express their feelings and just have fun and get to be them.
Sure. Yeah. I think especially in like we when I was talking to another one of our friends, Wayne,
Mm-hmm.
I think he mentioned that like becoming friends with like me and you and other people helped him because he was first generation as well. He came from Vietnam. We'll try and get him on the podcast at some point, but he the people that were around make such a big impact on the first generation people that are there, because they don't, what am I trying to say, we bring in, or we try to anyways, bring an environment where you can ask a question about, hey, I heard somebody say this thing, what does it mean, like what does the slang term mean, or like help them along socially in a way that they wouldn't get otherwise. And being in, I think the club soccer team, I think we did a really good job of that. I don't know if you agree or not, but I think we did a really good job of that, because we had a lot of first generation students that played with us.
Yeah.
And to have that group, and even some of the exchange guys, like you remember Michael from Germany?
Yeah, I remember Michael.
Yeah. So like we had a very diverse group, and it was really welcoming. And I think, I can't speak for everybody, but I think the people that have talked to me were like, yeah, that was really helpful to have that group kind of welcome me and show me how to kind of navigate UMW from a social perspective. Obviously, we didn't really talk about the finances within the soccer team, but
yeah,
for you to set up a group, like a group or a foundation to do that, is really, really helpful. I think the work that would entail, it people take it beyond just UMW, you know. Like I haven't seen Wayne in a while, but they take it beyond, right? It's like the transition, helping that transition become easier helps them go forward in life. Like even just past university helps them with jobs. Remember, like I'm kind of rambling at this point, but basically,
no, I mean, yeah.
basically what I'm trying to say is like that's really great work. I think the impact that makes on people will go way beyond just university itself and into the job market and into life in general. And it helps people become more well-rounded, right? They get, which I think is really important, especially now. Everyone is kind of, right, America's the melting pot of all sorts of different people. The more different types of people you get exposed to, the more understanding you'll be, the more empathetic you'll be of different people's decisions, why they think the way they do, their experiences, where they came from, why they don't know this American cultural thing that you would think you just know. I've noticed that with myself. I'll meet people who maybe don't pick up a certain social cue or something like that, and it's made me way more understanding, because I'm like, well, they might not have just known, they might be first generation, they might be this or that. And when I see other people who don't have that same level of understanding and they get upset, like, oh, this person missed this social cue or whatever, I'm like, no, you don't know what they went through to get here. And so I think it's really important for that sort of work to be done within the foundation, like you're doing, but with outside of it as well, like in a soccer team or in just friend groups, you know?
No, I think you got a good point there. So in terms of like, let's say like slangs or things that, or I guess cultural relevant in the United States. For example, sarcasm, I didn't pick that up until, I don't even know, ninth grade. It's
Yeah.
because like, I would take it seriously. I'm kind of like, oh, they don't actually want me to jump off the bridge. Okay, let me go ahead and not jump off a bridge.
Yeah.
Or like, slang, because with slang, if you haven't been here long enough, or if you're not like hip, I guess, you're
Mm-hmm.
not gonna know my thing. So it took me a while to be hip and know what this means. Like, for me, let's just say um, the word bet, like, oh, bet.
Mm-hmm.
I think of like, oh, what am I betting on? But when this means like, oh, we're like, it's cool, like it's whatever. So it's those kind of things that may seem simple when talking to somebody who is your age in the United States, but when you come from a different culture, it's not simple because you're trying to learn what that word actually means, and then it can be used so differently. So kind of like, okay, does this mean? What does it mean? What does it mean here? Are they joking? Are they being sarcastic? It's a whole different thing that you won't think about it unless you were in, I guess, a foreigner's shoes, if you will.
Yeah, and it made me have to think about it because I would have people text me. Like I remember, like I was at the UC with some of our teammates, and somebody said, "Oh, like, hey, I'll see you later," and somebody was like, "Oh, bet," and we walked away, and Wayne was like, "What does that mean?" And I remember, like, I was already kind of aware, but as that kept happening, I was like, it made me super aware of the fact that not everybody picks up on that stuff, and not everybody knows if they're not familiar with the culture. And so to be able to be that person for somebody like Wayne or you or whoever, to like, somebody texts me and like, hey, what does this mean? Like, I don't know. It gives a new perspective. Another one of my teammates was on he was on Tinder, and a girl messaged him something, and he sent me a screenshot. He's like, I don't know what this means. And I was like, I don't actually either. Let me look it up on Urban Dictionary. I was like, let me look it up on Urban Dictionary, and I'll tell you. But it just goes to show, like, it's to be understanding of a person that doesn't know, like, because kids can be mean, man, especially in middle school and high school. Like, if you don't know what something means, they're like, ha ha, you don't know what that means. Like, to be able to be that person that's like, here, come here, I'll tell you what it means, and then you can know. It's like, it's a weird part of life, I guess.
Yeah, and I was fortunate. I was fortunate to have people around me that were, like, I'm like, hey, because for me, I asked a lot of questions because I'm like, if I don't know, I'm gonna ask questions.
Mm-hmm.
So I would like wait whenever the thing they went past and be like, hey, what did they mean by that? What does this mean? How do you do this? Just because, like, you honestly don't know, and people are not really the most patient when explaining things. So
Yeah, exactly.
it's a bit difficult with that.
Yeah, no, it's really good that you ask, though, because I know people that won't ask either.
Yeah.
And so it's good. So for anyone listening who finds themselves in a situation like this, either on the side that you don't know or the side that somebody's asking you, one, ask the question for sure, because you're going to find people like you or like me or whoever who's more than willing to answer the question. And then if you're on the other side, be patient with them. Like, people don't know culture is a very strange thing to become accustomed to. If you haven't gone and visited other places, you don't know all the things that you take for granted that you just do, that somebody else might not know because they didn't grow up in the same culture. So be patient, man. I think we need more of that in general in society. Yeah, patience, right? People understanding that people come from different places, and which is, somehow I always get back to this, but that's one of the points of the podcast, right? It's like learning that people come from different places and have different experiences, and then wanting to share those with people.
That's a great point, I think.
Yeah. So, all right. Okay. So now you won the Grace Man Award. Going back to the Nehemia timeline, you won the Grace Man Award, and you've picked up a job with the U.S. Chamber of Commerce, correct?
Yep.
So what was your kind of drive in getting that sort of job, and what do you hope to, like, what is your kind of interest with that? I know we talked about, like, foreign investment into Africa and things like that. So you want to kind of try and walk us through kind of what you hope to accomplish there, how kind of the foreign investment in Africa works, and what your drive is with that?
Yeah. So with that, I started the job, a little over 2 weeks ago, and so my job is to really be like I'm a fellow, so I do research and other logistical things. for the Africa team, which pretty much is to do business and investment in Africa. So what that department does, we encourage businesses to join our membership, and we help them with getting them acquainted with heads of states or presidents or ambassadors in that country, so that way they can ask them questions on how to better invest their money in all their businesses in that country. And that really sits well with me, because one of the biggest issues that I've seen with many organizations that give aid is that they often say, we'll give you all this stuff, but we'll also take, let's say you have gold, we'll take your gold. So it's like, yeah, you're helping them, but at the same time taking away about resources from them, as opposed to what the chamber does is really let's find companies that will invest in a particular area to help the economy grow, and help local organizations give them jobs, and let's help the growth of that whole entire nation. So it really sits well with me, because I believe that there is so much to Africa, the whole continent itself, and so different nations that they can go ahead, instead of just simply giving aid, that thing was you can teach a man how to fish, you feed him for a lifetime. You can give me the fish, yeah, it's cool, but it's gonna run out. Teach me how to fish, I'll be good for a lifetime. Right. So you can give me my aid, and the aid, it'll run out, but if you invest in me and help me how to create business in that country, then I'll be set. And I think that's really what drove me to join that team.
Does it look promising to you? Do you think that you guys will find some success, or have they already had some success doing that?
Yeah, they have had some success doing that. We are very heavy in markets in South Africa, heavy in Nigeria, currently Kenya. We're very heavy on, and we're just trying to formulate a bunch of free trade agreements within these organizations. So that way, within the U.S. and the country, so that way there is more business that is happening back and forth, rather than the U.S. or other countries sending aid to that specific area.
Is that what you'd rather have, as far as if you'd rather have the investment in that way than just aid, than just dollars?
Yes, I think the investment goes a long way, and the aid is good for the short term crisis, but the investment and that business aspect in that country will help them go a long way once the aid runs out.
Definitely. So, if you are president of the United States and you have a magic wand,
okay,
what's 2 or 3 things that you would do to help some of the African countries? What's some policy, I guess, that you would put in place?
That is a great question, but I think it starts with the root of acknowledging, that means wholeheartedly acknowledging that Black Lives Matter. I think that's where it really starts. So fixing up the justice system and making sure that those who need a trial get a trial. There's a fair trial. And again, that's just things that I want to fix up in the United States before I do anything, because in Africa, there's a whole lot of Black people, different shades, of course, but Black. So I can't do business with Black people in Africa when I'm not taking care of them here in the United States. So that's, I guess, one thing I would really focus on doing. And then so beyond that, really educating people on Africa. Just, again, there is changing up the media narrative of how Africa is portrayed. Portraying as a place where business can be done, and a place that's not as poor as it is already portrayed in the media. And then also one thing I would do is I would encourage people to really go visit Africa. You will know, because you have visited South Africa. So I'm honest, there's so many things you could pick up. And people here in the United States, I feel like, are more concerned about visiting, let's say, Florida, New York, California, than going outside the country. And for me personally, I don't think you can have a global perspective unless you get global, you go outside the United States. Because unless you've seen the poorest of the poor, then you really can't understand. You really can't understand what it's like, what it is to feel like. So I think encouraging visits between people going back to Africa it'll be a point that would push forward as well.
Yeah, definitely. I think the going global thing is a really good point, and that's what the soccer team we tried. We had our mini go global a little bit almost. We had people from Africa, people from South and Latin America, we had people from Europe, people from Asia. We had everyone almost.
Yeah.
So
yeah, it's a cool time.
Yeah, definitely. I think those are all really good points to make. Right, we don't want to meddle and get super involved in other people's issues if we can't even solve our own problems. I think that's a very good point. I think one that should be considered strongly. So hopefully we make some progress with that at some point. Whether or not it will happen, who knows? But I think culturally though, from the standpoint of we've come a long way. I think as a country. I know the United States has its flaws. Obviously, I'm not gonna sit here and say the United States is perfect, but in people say it's been 100 years since this thing or that thing, but also like in the same time to change a culture as much as the United States culture has changed in the last since slavery, to get something like that out of a system, it takes time. New generations have to come and because the people that still were familiar with the old generations are alive, especially from like the Civil Rights Act of the 60s. Like those people are still around. And so it takes time. It takes new generations to build like the tolerance, I guess you could say, because the people that were fighting against desegregation back in the 60s are still around, a lot of them. And so we're only a generation or two removed. And so I think you see going forward, the generation after us and the one after them, I think we'll see more and more progress turn in terms of the Black Lives Matter and the racial equality that we would all like to see. Obviously, we'd all like to see it now, for sure, right? But I think we're going in a good direction. I don't know. Do you have thoughts on that?
Yeah, I mean, we're going in a direction. I think it could be faster, and I think just young people need to go out and vote. I think that's something that we haven't done too well in the past couple of years. Go out, simply go out and vote, because your vote matters, And I mean, November can only tell what's coming next. So
yeah,
I'll just leave it there. Let's go out and vote, and it's November.
Yeah, definitely do your research. Go out and vote.
Your research,
I think
please.
this is a good spot to end. But yeah, like you said, do your research. Go out and vote. Do you have any last tidbits, places we can find your foundations or anything like that?
Yes. So I want to thank you for having me. It's been wonderful having this conversation.
For sure.
Go ahead and follow my organization on IG. It's Ubumwe. I'll share that with you another way. But yes,
yeah, we'll put that in the description. We'll put the link to it in the description.
Please do. We're all taking donations. You have a little here and there. That would be great. We do things like resume workshops. We give out free school supplies to members, and we do a bunch of other cultural relevant things. So if you have $1 or $2, please donate. That could be helpful. And Black Lives Matter, and go out and vote. Yeah.
Sounds good. We'll end it there. Bye, everybody.